Let's give this one a go though. It's 15 years of WoW versus 1 year of Final Fantasy. So very relevant to me because I've been playing WoW since officially since the end of vanilla WoW. So that is like almost 20 years. On and off, admittedly, but I've been main gaming World of Warcraft, like fully main gaming commitment, like never let my sub drop or anything like that since I finished university, and that was in 2014. So 9 years I've been like non-stop main gaming WoW, like basically daily login, pretty much not playing anything else. So this could be very relevant to me, and obviously I've just recently put WoW on the side to come and explore Final Fantasy, and so far so far I won't lie guys, I'm absolutely loving the switch. You guys, the community and stuff, are hard carrying, I will admit, but the game is also good in from what I've played as well. So I will let this one play from Jesse Cox, and you guys have said this one's really, really good, so I'm very much looking forward to it.
Few weeks, I've started to notice a lot of familiar faces from the World of Warcraft community taking another look at Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah, this must be
today,
the original Exodus from WoW when Asmund played, right?
That while sharing
Good
many
volume.
similar concepts, diverge in their execution of the MMO genre. As a fan of both games and 15-year veteran of WoW, I've often thought about this subject as I now play through Final Fantasy XIV on a near daily basis since August of last year. I frequently get asked to compare the two, and the simplest way I've been able to do so is the following. World of Warcraft is an MMORPG, while Final Fantasy XIV is an RPG MMO.
Ooh,
what does this mean besides hopefully sounding clever? In Final Fantasy XIV, the entire creative process, the direction, the core concepts, all of it are approached from an intrinsically different design philosophy than that of Warcraft. So it doesn't mean you can't enjoy both, it just means they're made for two very different gamers. Let me explain. I think most people have an understanding of what an MMORPG is beyond any sort of definition. There are expectations as to what that experience will be, which is why after playing Final Fantasy XIV, I've come to call it an RPG MMO. Because while all the multiplayer elements are there, I believe they aren't entirely necessary. If the MMO were removed and all we were left with was the RPG, the story, the music, the gameplay, it feels like the player would still have a complete experience. This is because the team behind Final Fantasy XIV, from its inception, has put its focus squarely on storytelling. This design choice then influences every other aspect of the game, from characters to world building to music to animation, all serve to enhance the storytelling. It is without a doubt the single most vital aspect of Final Fantasy XIV. Everything comes from the story, everything is related to the story, and everything exists to service the story. So as we move forward in this video, you'll see every time I bring up a comparison or idea in Final Fantasy XIV, it's going to be in some way related to the story. And it's because of this one fact that Final Fantasy and WoW can still feel similar to a player moving between the two, but also be vastly different experiences.
I actually personally really like that. It's very refreshing. I don't think there's been a game that I've played for the story in a long time. Yeah, because a lot of people, they're just like, oh, another WoW clone. Oh, like this is based on WoW. But I actually think that they would be wrong saying that with Final Fantasy, because like especially recent WoW, because like WoW now, I wouldn't even barely call it an RPG really. It's just like it's like an esportsified game that's just trying to make money, right? And it has like RPG elements to it, sure, and like it's got a bunch of different like disconnected end games and whatnot, but I do like it's for me personally, it's very refreshing to have like a story be the main focus, and like every single person that's commented on my YouTube videos recently has been like, welcome to the world, enjoy the story, like take it slow, play the game how you want. Whereas in WoW, I feel like you're almost like everybody just tells you like, come on, get to max level so we can play, come on, and like you're just like, all right, I guess I'll like do that, and then they're like, come on, the fastest way is spamming dungeons, just spam dungeons, come on, I'm waiting for you, come on. And you're not even like really allowed to enjoy it. And then Blizzard does a really terrible job of telling you the story themselves anyway. Like they even put you come out of the starting zone, and then they put you immediately into battle for Azeroth. I think they might have changed this like very recently, but they put you immediately into battle for Azeroth, and then you've just made your character, and the first thing is like, welcome, hero of Azeroth, let me suck your dick. It's like, you've saved the world 16 times. And you're just like, bro, I just spawned in, man. Like, what the fuck is going on? Like, So they've done like a really, really bad job. They've basically just been like, oh yeah, well, we should get people up to the max level really quick so they can start the game. And they've just got like 15 plus years of content and storytelling that they're just like, fuck it, dude, that doesn't matter. Yeah, champion the wins. Because WoW was so successful, especially originally, everyone was just like, if anyone tried to deviate from what WoW did, usually it wouldn't work. So people were like, well, we just have to follow the blueprint that World of Warcraft set for MMOs, basically. So they just kind of did that. But it's really nice actually that Square Enix had the confidence to deviate eventually, and as you said, like refine it in their own way. You actively search for games that have good stories, and I would love to become like that as well. In fact, like I've been saying this a couple times recently. When I was a kid, I would exclusively play single player story games, and then like I don't know, as soon as I got like Xbox Live on when I got Xbox 360 and Xbox Live, and then I just discovered like Halo 3 online and like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and then I just was like, oh, guess I'm an online multiplayer gamer now. And then basically like never played story games ever again. And then I started playing WoW, and it's like I got interested in the lore, but I never like, it was never a priority for me. And I just kind of like, I almost like forgot about enjoying a story. And the streams I've done, like Soma, for example, Little Nightmares, as Valley said as well, I loved those games. Like, I really, really enjoyed playing those games. And I know they're kind of like horror ones. Outlast as well was really good. I know they're all like horror games, but I would love to do some non-horror story-driven games as well in future. And streaming them is just fun because people can enjoy the story with you. And it seems like most of you guys like story games because you guys like Final Fantasy, right? So, all right, that's I'm 2 minutes in and I've already spent about 20 minutes talking. So.
Let me just throw this out there. What was the story of vanilla World of Warcraft? If you had to think.
Story of vanilla WoW? Alright. You're literally an absolute nobody. Coming into the world, you have to do the tasks of like a peon. And then you slowly build up a reputation as like an adventurer. Pretty much similar to Final Fantasy so far, at least, right? I've just spawned in and they're like, oh, cool, yeah, join the ranks, that's great. And then they're entrusting me with more and more tasks. So they kind of do the same in vanilla WoW. And then you basically just become a glorified messenger, where you just run across the entire world, delivering notes to everybody. And then occasionally they're like, oh, this guy wants that. He told you to do that thing? Okay, we do that. All right, maybe we should kill this dude. And then you go kill that dude. And then slowly you kind of just like do all these somewhat meaningful tasks where you're just generally helping the world, I guess. And then you get to a point where people know your name, and then you can start meeting the big boys. And then what's the storyline? Oh, there's a big dragon. All right, well, I guess we'll kill Onyxia. Oh, okay, now the Fire Lord's escaping. We gotta go imprison him again. And then okay, big bad dragon is threatening the world. You take care of him. I don't really know what's the like actual lore. There's just all these bosses that kind of pop up. I don't really know how and why. That I know the events. I don't know what links them together and why, kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, I think it's like not a terrible way to go about it, to be honest. You become like, because to be fair, if you did like spawn into this world, right? Why would people trust you straight away? You have to do things to gain people's trust, right? And like delivering errands, doing these small chores here and there to kind of like prove that you want it. It makes sense, to be honest. Obviously you're like a little errand boy, and maybe it goes on a little too long a lot of the time. Yeah, exactly. Street cred. Exactly. It's MMO street cred, adventurer street cred, right? Anyway, let's play.
It's because there was no story. There were quests, there was lore, certainly different adventures to get involved in, but no overarching story. There was no driving force behind what you were doing, besides the desire to gain levels, abilities, to see what's around the next bend or explore the next zone. The story of the World of Warcraft was what you, the player, made it. It was trying to find the right Zevras in the Barrens. It was sneaking into the undeveloped Mount Hyjal. It's trying to raid the enemy capital. Those were the experiences we remember. In fact, the most recent example of a great WoW memory I have is getting the Alliance Horde Slayer title and that achievement in BFA, the whole point is that you kill enough enemy players to literally be marked on the map as a bounty, and then people try to come kill you, and if you survive long enough, you get an achievement. It was one of the most exhilarating recent memories I have in the game. I loved every moment of it.
The last time anybody ever had fun in World of Warcraft. The literal last time. No, but he made a good point, right? Like, the gameplay was literally just like you log in and you're like, let's go do something. And I think Final Fantasy echoes that, because people log in and they're just chilling. Like, I literally see people just hanging outside at the crystal, like the big aether crystal things, and they're just like chilling there, and they're just like talking or emoting or like comparing mounts or doing glam and stuff like that, and they're just having a good time. And then you've got like the parties and stuff in Final Fantasy, and people are, you know, they're just like logging in and they just literally go to a party and dance for like 6 hours, and they just have a good time. And I imagine they're just like probably like sat in Discords chatting to their friends and whatnot, and they're like dancing with their character, listening to the DJs and stuff. And don't even get me started on the Final Fantasy DJs, because I think I'm gonna have to make a video about the Final Fantasy DJs, because I think it's a fucking brilliant idea, to be honest. I don't know how, like, I only just found out about that, and how it's like mind-blowing, honestly. Such an insanely good idea, to be honest. We're 3 minutes in, guys. Ali, thank you for the follow.
In Final Fantasy
XIV, gonna be a long react.
Someone their favorite moment, and I did. Almost every single person is going to say theirs is related to story. Obviously, this isn't every player, as many players find the same camaraderie and accomplishment as WoW players
Don't skip
when taking down harder bosses. But for the majority of players, the story is not just an important part of the game, it's also something that binds the community together. With that said, after years of playing WoW, to say there isn't a fan base for the world or story building they're doing would be foolish, as I am one of them. But let's be real. The majority of players simply do not care about the plot of Warcraft.
True.
I'd have to guess that's because it was never really the driving force of the game that got them playing in the first place.
Yep.
And more importantly, sticking with it. The fact is, as Blizzard moves more towards storytelling in their more recent expansions, they've developed multiple ways of getting across major plot information to players who may be interested, but it's not integral for the player's enjoyment.
The first time I even considered looking into the story of WoW was in BFA, which was about 14 years after the game released and about 12 years after I started playing. It was because of Gahoon, actually, the first raid in Aldir in BFA. And I was like, who the hell is Gahoon? And people were like, yeah, he's an old god. And I was like, there's no shot. This guy is an old god. But apparently he was a man-made old god, technically. So I looked into it, and that's when I like first started looking into the lore. And then I watched, he actually just referenced him here, but Noble. You guys probably know Noble. I think he did Final Fantasy quite a bit, right? So I started looking at Noble, like listening and watching to Noble's videos. And I used to listen to them like when I went to bed. And it was like a bedtime story. It was so nice. And I actually kind of like the lore in WoW now, but you really have to go out of your way. Like, it's not told well in the game. If I want to know about WoW lore, I will like type it in on YouTube and find Noble talking about it, because he's done all the research and like put all the pieces together. And Blizzard just don't do themselves. They just don't do that themselves. So you have to go to a third party to get the story that you want, which I think is quite badly designed and told, right? Yeah, exactly. It's hard to dig up. Whereas I think in Final Fantasy it's basically spoon-fed to you, which is good because it's like a vehicle within the game. And then if you want to know more and you want like almost like a video essay or like documentary on one character, I'm sure there's YouTubers that have probably done that. Like I think you said Jesse Cox even did like lore of specific characters where he's probably just pushed everything into like a bite-sized chunk. But you'll probably be like, oh yeah, I know that. Oh yeah, I know that. I remember that from the story and stuff, right? Just from playing the game. Whereas you don't really have that in WoW. You're like, whoa, I didn't know that. Whoa, this character's cooler than I thought, and stuff like that, right? So are we waiting for the crying? Yeah, you guys think I'm gonna cry? People were asking this yesterday. They were like, do you cry at films? I was like, yeah, I actually do cry at like movies. And I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna cry at a game, guys. Like, I'm pretty cold-hearted. You know, am I really gonna cry at a game? But you guys think 100%. So we'll have to wait and see. You'll absolutely cry. Clip this and wait a few months. Misty eyes. Honestly, if it's anything like the feels that I get from movies, then maybe I will cry. I don't know. All right,
It's
let's
this
go.
delivery that provides the necessary surface level context to keep a player engaged, but has also formed a complicated relationship with players who do enjoy story and world building in Warcraft. Team leads and devs change,
Thank you guys for
shifting
the
the vision
follows.
for each expansion to fit what is essentially the rule of cool. While main story beats are planned ahead, it's very clear that things have changed or will change based on necessity. Main characters vanish, story elements are left behind, and lore is retconned to fit with the moment.
Do they retcon stuff in?
Lore nerd,
I assume they don't
years
retcon
of that
in
have
Final Fantasy.
definitely left me kind of jaded when
Because
it
they
comes
do
to
that
WoW.
in WoW.
A silly example is years ago at BlizzCon, I asked the devs about that weird snake tail in Gundrak. I was like, what is that thing? Their response then, and ever since, has pretty much been, we really don't know. Perhaps it was snuck in, perhaps it was dropped content. Who knows? All I can say is, if it was in Final Fantasy XIV, that snake tail would not only have had a purpose, but it would have shown up 2 expansions later as an important character.
That seems like a big thing to just be there. Like the way I look at this as well is I never thought about this until someone said it. Like maybe like a year or two to me, a year or two ago to me. And that was like in TV and stuff, every shot is important, right? So like if for some reason in the foreground is like a T-mug or something, and like specifically, you know, like the camera's panned out. Yeah, Chekhov's gun, right? So it's like something like this. Why would it just be there? Like, what is this? Yeah, sorry. Okay, guys, this is gonna take fucking ages, isn't it?
That snake tail would not only have had a purpose, but it would have shown up 2 expansions later as an important character in an ongoing story. Yep, this is going to be one of those videos that's long enough to be split into multiple parts. But it's good, because it allows us to dive a little deeper. When it comes to content, both games feature the staples of the MMORPG genre to differing degrees. Leveling, dungeons, raids, PvP, special events, grinds, and daily
Is that what they're called?
In fact, some on the 2 dev teams are friends, and they definitely borrow ideas from each other all the time. Yoshi P, the director of Final Fantasy XIV, is notably a huge Blizzard fan. The difference, of course, comes from what the dev teams have decided the focus of their game should be. The best way I can simplify this is to say that Warcraft is more about the destination.
Giga Chad.
And Final Fantasy XIV is
about
more about
the
the journey. As an example, in WoW, the leveling process in, say, a new expansion is a buffer between you and max level where the real game starts. I was once told by a friend that he always thought of it as advertisements for places that later on at max level you'll spend time grinding. Once you've leveled up, you can begin doing harder dungeons, farming gear in Mythic Plus, running raids, joining PvP battlegrounds or arenas, and doing your daily quests or grinding rep. And for years, this has not only been a pretty standard MMORPG cycle, but WoW has been the best at it. The goal, of course, is keeping players engaged and logged in.
Pin a no spoilers
and going back to our original
story
discussion, doing most of these things continues the Warcraft story as well. In Final Fantasy XIV, it's a bit different. With the story being the most important part, this means leveling isn't just a rush to max level to experience the cool parts. The cool parts are the leveling. At max level, there are certainly raids and dailies and grinds and PvP, but they're nowhere near the complexity of WoW. Leveling up a job in Final Fantasy XIV isn't just about the leveling process either. Sure, in WoW you can level up an alt, experience the other faction's story, and a lot of people enjoy that. But in Final Fantasy XIV, each job has its own story and quests associated with it.
I think that's so good. I feel like WoW took that out of the game. In vanilla, you literally had class quests, and you had like a class quest line, and every 10 levels they would send you on a decently sized quest chain, I reckon. Like sometimes you'd get like a really big iconic weapon, sometimes you would literally get an ability or 2, and sometimes you would just get like a piece of armor that was really good, but it was always like kind of overstatted, which gave you the incentive to actually do the quest line and go out of your way to do your class quests. It wasn't mandatory unless it was an ability unlocking one, but like they took that out of the game. I feel like that literally doesn't exist anymore in WoW. So the identity between your character and the class that you play, like you and the class that you play, is just like massively disconnected. Yeah, Heritage Armor's cool. I actually haven't done those myself, those quest lines. Maybe I should. Yes, the totem quests on Shaman, like, and if you didn't do them, you literally can't use like a lot of your abilities, for example. The first quests I did when I first logged in was basically like It was like, go to the Lancers Guild and, you know, go do this, prove yourself, prove your worth. It's probably similar, you know, instead of going to the Lancers Guild, you go to the Monks dojo or something, I don't know. And then you'd probably go do the exact same quests, like killing ladybirds, squirrels, and whatnot. But it did feel like nice that I was being recruited into the ranks of my actual job, rather than just like, yo, go do these. Yeah, get me some wolf meat and stuff like that, right? Yeah, Verigan's Fist, absolute banger wep. The warriors with the Whirlwind Axe quest, and then you also got like Berserker Stance, which you needed, otherwise you couldn't do like half your abilities. Mages got like, you know, like staffs or wands and stuff, sometimes like a helm, like a wizard's hat or something. Warlocks to get their literal pets, and you couldn't play the game without them. Just those kind of that kind of flavor, I feel like just adds like there's I don't think there's any downside to that in the game, so there's just no reason not to flesh out the class and jobs and stuff like that, right? Just taking dev time, yeah, fair enough, I guess, because budget's a big thing in MMOs, and I imagine towards the beginning as well. Like this game, I think has like kind of popped off now, right? So maybe they'd have the budget now, but maybe back in the day they didn't. I don't know. Some point you're done learning. Yeah, so like maybe in the first half, it's not like having a class quest like every 10 levels up to max, right? But let's say by the end of ARR, you know, that's when the job quests kind of end, because you know, you're firmly in that job now, kind of thing. Like you're a level 50, whatever. And then the only times where it would go above like ARR would be the new classes like Reaper and stuff, obviously. If you just pick up Reaper at 70, it's like, okay, well, you need to learn how to be a Reaper, right? So there'll be like 70 to 80 or whatever. Yeah, do we know what classes are getting added in the next Final Fantasy expansion? He wears a hint at FanFest. Well, we got a FanFest in October, so maybe. His shirt is always a hint. That is so cool, man. I like the sound of Yoshi P. He sounds like a cool guy. Very rarely so many people cheering for a 50-year-old man to remove his shirt. Yeah, everyone stands Yoshi P, dude. I respect it. Everyone's like, yep, he plays Lalafell, he plays Black Mage. That's why they're always good. That's why you have to respect Lalafells. He's the GOAT, dude. He's the GOAT. All right, guys, we're 6 minutes in.
You know, they're varying in
We'll probably
size
finish
scope,
this at least
but,
within
like,
the
Dark
hour,
Knight,
okay?
for example,
Surely.
is universally loved for being some of the best storytelling in the game. But again, story is what it's about. Most large-scale raids only have one difficulty level and are more events than actual team-building struggles. Those raids and trials that do have harder modes are canonically fan fiction versions of the events, so players who are just there for the story won't miss
really like
anything
how the
if they
raid
don't have
fights
time
look in this
for
game.
harder content. PvP, while vibrant,
I'm
is
so looking
nothing
forward to
close
doing
that.
raids.
Wow, reputations and dailies exist,
in about 2 years'
not
time.
in a way that forces the player to spend a significant amount of time investing in them. But you're rewarded in a way that makes it feel like you're kind of getting one over on the devs for the amount of time you actually put into it. Let me give you some specific examples. Let's talk reputation grinds. Admittedly, in WoW, I haven't played much beyond the start of max level content
Little
in Shadowlands,
JC.
and this may be different, but if we look at most reputation grinds, it's usually something along the lines of like, you earn 750 rep a day with a weekly bonus of some sort, and you need 40 to 50k rep to reach Exalted. So you're looking at, I don't know, over a month of rep farming to reach max reputation.
Yep.
This, of course, is part of the design philosophy again, to keep you engaged in the world longer. In Final Fantasy XIV, while some of the older reputations are pretty similar, the newer ones, take Pixies for example, are designed not only to be fast, but to feel very rewarding. Every day you get 3 quests that take roughly 15 minutes to complete. And as a reward, you get tons of reputation, tokens that you can eventually...
That a lot of XP. That a lot of XP. What the heck? 2.4 mil.
buy rep items with, and then loads of experience. I'm talking like a quarter of your XP bar for 3 quests. Insane. And this is great because not only does it make grinding rep easy, but it also rewards you for doing it on one of your other jobs, incentivizing you to level additional classes.
Yeah.
Let's take another example. Unlocking flight. In WoW, unlocking
this
flight
used to be me.
has always been a process.
With the rep bars. I used to be a rep grinder.
To earn. Currently, I think to unlock flight, it's something like getting Renown 44 and completing the last sigil and having completed chapter 12 of the Covenant campaign, receiving memories to unlock account-wide flying, and then you can do it in Shadowlands. In Final Fantasy XIV, while exploring the map that you're already exploring anyway, you use a compass to find little green wind orbies. And when you find them all and you complete the area story arc, you unlock flying for that specific zone.
That's what they did in Dragonflight.
It's easy enough to get just by going through the leveling process.
They stole that for Dragonflight. They stole from FF, guys. It's gone full circle.
Design standpoint, I love this. When I first learned this is how you got flying in Final Fantasy XIV, I was actually angry about all the time WoW made me waste. In Final Fantasy XIV,
Blizzard,
you
watch
get to
this video.
experience the zone, which is what WoW's trying to get you to do, but 14 doesn't gate your ability to move through it quicker in the future behind some sort of grind.
I didn't know that either.
Which has probably got a few of you now thinking, Jesse, you're making it seem like you don't have to work for much in Final Fantasy XIV. But of course you do. There are things like fancy relic weapon grinds and stuff like that, but not nearly to the degree
Sounds
that
like
WoW
there's so
makes you
much
grind
to do
outside.
in this game.
Honestly, I think we're so used to Blizzard making us go through content multiple times for months in order to unlock something like flying that anything less seems ridiculously easy. But that shouldn't be the case, gang. I don't know anyone who enjoys it, but we still do it.
Also, what really appeals to me is because you can be every job, on the same character. Like, I actually have a main. In WoW, I reroll all the time. Like, I have literally like 12 mains because it's like, oh, am I going to play this spec or class for a patch? And then it's like this spec or class or this spec or class. But it means that like I never have a true main, which is just my main character I do all the side stuff on. So I don't, like, it used to be my hunter when I just played hunter and one-tricked hunter. So I would do all the, I was saying like how I used to grind the reputations and stuff like that. I don't do that anymore because my main is constantly changing. So if I grind reputations on my main, which is just like the character I'm maining currently, next patch that could be something else, and then the reputations will like reset. I think they might have made them account wide now, or at least the achievements account wide now. I can't remember. But the actual bars, I love seeing that like page filled up with all those bars, like green, right? And then if I change character, I'd have to redo that all again on a new character. So I can't do that. But in like Final Fantasy, I could literally just do everything on one character, which sounds like really nice. Like, I do kind of like the idea of like completionist content, but in WoW, it's always put me off because of the whole, I have all these characters and I have all these different memories on all these different characters as well, right? I have like, oh yeah, I did that raid on this character back in the day. Oh, this character used to be my main. I bet you didn't know about that. But it's like having everything consolidated, like this character has been through thick and thin. We've literally done everything in the game. Yeah, I've changed jobs for, appropriate content and stuff, but this character has fucking seen it all. Whereas I'm like, in WoW, one character has seen this, and then the other characters haven't, and then it's like, oh, but I still consider them like high up in my hierarchy for like my favorite characters that I have, so it's all a little bit like muddled and like muddy water and stuff. So yeah, I will definitely get all the jobs maxed out. I'll play, like, there's loads I want to try out, but it's just so nice to be able to be like, I've literally done like every raid encounter on the same character, whereas I cannot say that, even be close to saying that in WoW, right? Much easier to start FF than other MMOs because it doesn't have to commit to a class. Yes, exactly. Like, if I didn't like Dragoon when I'm level 30, I can just change and quickly level up my second job and carry on. Whereas I don't have to like go back and do all the story again on a new character and whatnot, which is just so, like, it just removes that barrier, which could be like a potential quit moment in the game for a lot of people, right?
It all just comes down to the fact that the Final Fantasy XIV devs are not trying to keep you in their world for countless hours. So it seems like everything is a little easier. Craig. The fact is, the 14 devs have literally said they don't care if you log in every day. Get what you want from their game.
That's good.
Come back when you want more.
Go do your IRL
Instead,
shit.
The grindy bits of Final Fantasy XIV are something entirely different.
Play
I recently
when you
saw
want.
this ad for Final Fantasy XIV.
It's like Asmongold says, make a game where people want to waste their time, not feel forced to waste their time. Not feel like they're wasting time. Sorry. I know he said it better than me. There's a reason he has 25,000 viewers, like very, very minimum, and I don't.
14, and it made me laugh because I've never seen anything like this for WoW. But most Final Fantasy XIV players
Dude,
will
the
tell
free
you
trial in
this
this
is where
game
the
is
majority
insanely
of your
good.
max level adventure lies. Look at this thing: gathering, crafting, free
Indeed,
companies or
Brainbox.
guilds,
Things like
housing,
copium.
fashion, the gold saucer, which is like a permanent version of the Dark Moon Fair.
Oh
And
yeah,
I'll
the
be
gold
honest,
saucer, baby.
yeah, this is
We're
this
definitely
is pretty
doing a
much
gold
Endgame in
saucer
Final Fantasy
stream at some
14.
point.
That's not to say 14 doesn't have challenging content for those looking for a more traditional MMO raiding experience, but like the point I'm trying to make is that in WoW, the endgame focus is on harder and harder raiding and mythics, PvP, both arena, battleground, and world, with all the other things
This is
in the game
cool.
existing
This is more than
to
8
aid in
people.
doing so. In 14, the endgame focus is more
Oh, this
diverse.
is
Although
this
there
is
are
24
savage and
person
ultimate
raid.
difficulty raids designed for those who want a more challenging experience, there's also
see the
things like
bars.
building a cool guild house, or
Yeah.
crafting a special weapon from a weird boss drop, or going on treasure hunts. There's
Ooh.
more to do than just raiding for the sake of raiding.
I didn't know there was treasure hunts. That sounds cool. It's like Easter egg hunts. I used to love those. We got so much content to do. So much stream content, so much YouTube content. It's gonna be a good couple years, guys.
Speaking of crafting, one of the biggest issues I have with WoW
What
is that
watches?
crafting for so long has seemed totally pointless once Looking for Raid was created. Any gear
That's
you
true.
could craft, say as a leather worker, was useless for those who could just get raid gear easily. Meanwhile, in Final Fantasy XIV, gathering and crafting is very much a major part of the endgame experience. If you're curious about other things,
To be fair, they
PvP, for
they did
example,
change that
I
in
mean,
WoW
in
now.
this case, WoW definitely wins this one. There is PvP in Final Fantasy XIV in the form of war games, and there are many people who enjoy it. It's just that there's a wider variety and larger community in WoW.
Badge.
It is, after all, part of the core concept, faction warfare. This doesn't exist in 14. There are no warring player factions. In fact, much of the story is about getting all the nations of the world on the same team. The funny thing is, as WoW attempts to add more story, the PvP they're doing makes less and less sense narratively.
Yep,
And
that's true.
I mean, just the tip of the iceberg of the endgame experience. There's a lot more to talk about, but since we are talking endgame, I think we should flip it and do the starting experience. Going back to the design philosophies of the two games,
Go-to
we can
trailer.
see differences in the premise of each and how it affects your intro
I love
into the
those
game.
versus
In World of
everyone.
Warcraft, you start your experience as just one of the
true
many
Final
faces
Fantasy
in service of
PvP.
your chosen faction. Over time, your actions in defeating various threats increase your importance to the world. In Final Fantasy XIV, you are literally the Warrior of Light, the chosen hero from moment one. There is no
Oh, was I wrong then? What I was talking about earlier? I feel like people don't know that I'm the Warrior of Light just yet. At least where I am. Like I did have a weird like acid trip where I talked to some crystals yesterday, but for the most part, everyone's like, "Oh, you little scallywag, yeah, you can pick up some flowers for me." So maybe in a couple of days, a few more days time, they're gonna be like, "Oh, chosen one."
denying your importance to the story. The entire narrative revolves around you. Even
Who's
though
this?
initially you're not recognized as such, I mean, that's what you are. Quickly proving yourself to the world. From that point on, every character not only acknowledges you, but they recognize the importance of your role over there.
To be fair, WoW does the
So
same in
add
that
that
sense.
to the story being the most important element, and you'll see how this might be a daunting task for some new players. Much of the 14 starting experience
I did this.
it's
I met
pretty
this
slow.
guy.
World building, character
Forgot his
introduction,
name though.
lasting roughly the first 50 levels. I
I'm
actually
an
think this is one of
ARR,
the
yeah.
biggest problems Final
I'm
Fantasy
day
XIV
3.
has, as it's a hard sell to explain how phenomenal this game becomes only after you put in 40 hours. But that's exactly what I was told, and what I have told others, because it's true. The strong connection to narrative hurts the starting experience, especially for new players who may have friends playing or seen an amazing moment from a recent expansion, but they can't play it themselves without playing through 100 hours of story or paying for a skip and finding themselves completely disconnected from the
I've heard a saying: you either stop during ARR, or you live long enough to become a walking advertisement for the game. True and based, pretty much. I have an inkling I might become a walking advertisement.
plot, and that is a real shame because the game uses
Oh, I've met
all of
these
that
guys.
story and setup to build
Ida.
out the rest of the world. So if you skip over the starting experience, the amount of stuff you miss is mind-boggling. And
True,
because the
Vailufa.
story is so well told, and all the characters and locations and factions, etc., are so perfectly fit into the puzzle that is the main plot, that when twists happen, they make perfect sense. When reveals are made, it's like, oh yeah, of course. All because of that level 1 through 50 experience laying the foundation. And as I've said, I've experienced both ends of this. Years ago, when the game first came out, I gave it a shot, and around level 40 was totally burnt out. It wasn't until I returned last year looking for something new that I gave the game a second chance.
That's my arc as well. That's my arc as well. Like I said in the character creation video, I tried playing this like 2 years ago, and I got not very far at all. I got to, I think, like the first dungeon, and then I don't remember anything after that. I don't think I played after that. Like, I was very closed-minded about it, and I've forgotten literally everything in the whole game. And now we're here to properly play. Yeah, common angle. It was because I was like, Preach made a video about this the other day about what not to do when playing an MMO, right? I think that was his video. It was like going into Final Fantasy with like this like comparison in your head of like playing Final Fantasy as like a WoW player. Usually people are like, because they're just like rush to Endgame, do all this. A lot of people buy the skip as well, right? To just like get there real quick. But this time we're doing it the proper way. Yes, like he said at the start of this video, it's an RPG MMO, not an MMO RPG. I think that's a good way to put it, to be honest. I like how he phrased it. All right, let's carry on, boys. He's stopped again. He stopped again.
I'm so glad I listened, because for a fan of story like me, what this game offers is a fantastic experience. Sadly, the reason behind Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn slow start, can be traced back to its origins as a reboot of the disaster that was the original Final Fantasy XIV. The budget was small, the timetable was short.
Is this the same game?
And it shows. It isn't until the later patches of A Realm Reborn and the release of the first expansion, Heavensward, that the game truly shines. The production value skyrockets, the writing is less long-winded, the voice actors change, just about everything is better than where it started. And universally, everyone acknowledges this fact, which is why I assume the free trial with...
Why do people keep telling me to play the critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV that has a free trial that's level 60 and includes Heavensward expansion? This is kind of fun. Why is the music so good? Why are the characters so good? Why am I... God, I am crying so hard I cannot see my hotbar. Have you heard about the critically acclaimed... The full circle, boys. The full circle.
Gonna keep playing the game.
We're doing some FF reacting into actually playing the game.
Totally insane about all of that is only by sticking with it can you then truly appreciate the slow burn A Realm Reborn was and all the ideas it introduces that later become very important. It's like when your parents gave you some advice as a kid and you didn't listen, and now you're 30 and you're like, damn, that was good advice. I should have listened.
That is a personal attack.
How do you sell that to people? Meanwhile, the WoW starting experience
I am
is
30.
More welcoming to new players because they keep
ignore advice
and changing it. A thing
even my own advice
can't do without damaging the plot it's trying to set up. Because Warcraft doesn't concern itself with this. They now offer multiple ways to level, a special starting zone designed to teach new players. They have streamlined the process of getting your character to the end game, which, as we discussed, is a core design philosophy.
It sucks.
But this means, depending on when you started playing, your story experience in World of Warcraft could be entirely different from another player. Some moments I may have experienced years ago are no longer in the game, making it so things that bind players and keep them engaged in the game are not story, but it's progression systems, guild dynamics, and faction conflict, which I think explains why people enjoy playing Classic, as it has all the things I just listed, but also a shared sense of existing in the same world, which I feel like, I think many of you would say, the current iteration of WoW does not have. Another way to look at this is how
look at this, it's popping.
If we look
this
at
is like my welcome party the other day.
Content cycles in both WoW and 14,
everyone's there for me.
The picture we get of everything I've been talking about becomes more clear. In WoW, the new content starts with the release of a trailer.
Ego expanding.
Budget, stunningly well made, sometimes shocking reveal. It's usually a way for Blizzard to show the first major inciting story moment. This is something like Sylvanas breaking the Helm of Domination or Deathwing destroying the world. Then, before launch, there's a book and maybe some short stories about major characters involved in the next expansion. We'll get a pre-pack.
That's the thing, though. You need to buy a book just to read about the lore. And if you don't, you have no fucking clue what is going on in the expansion. That is such a stupid way to do it. Why not just tell the story in the game, bro?
Match event, and then the expansion will release.
I can't read.
Part, every WoW expansion
you think I'm gonna buy a book?
Formula. We get a short burst of main story before pausing for leveling content and eventually returning to the main plot. Then a major raid is released, and the story for the main plot continues as we get a series of patches culminating in the last patch of the expansion and the showdown with the big bad.
Buy the game. $50. Pay the monthly sub, $20. Now buy the book, $35. Did they not realize that if they just tell the story in the game, people will be more invested in the game, and then they'll pay the monthly sub for longer, and then they'll get free money, and then they'll probably buy race changes, transmogs, in-game store stuff, realm, like all of the microtransactions. They don't realize that if they pay well less, people will be more invested and therefore passively buy more. Blizzard!
Then the cycle begins again with a new trailer.
Death Ninja.
Because of its
that's way too crazy.
Nature, almost all of the content in 14 is delivered in game.
End of BFA was good though.
In the previous expansion's 4th major patch, you'll get hints of a new story. By the time the 5th major patch rolls around, you'll have more information, important details, or new jobs will be hinted at. And then, around the same time, we get the trailer. Unlike WoW, it's not a single moment, but a series of vignettes and a hint of
that's
things
me,
to come
Dragoon!
Then at launch, the main story is experienced and completed throughout the leveling process. The first major patch and so on are there to wrap up loose ends, tell new smaller stories either via raid or a series of max level trials, or introduce new areas that serve as a way to grind out special weapon skins. And then, by the end of the 3rd major patch, the story of the expansion is wrapped up. And then the 4th patch
to play
continues
this game.
the trend of hinting at what will be in the new expansion. So once again, I'm sure the obvious difference comes down to the initial design choice by the two dev teams. The reason the Warcraft patch cycle is what it is to keep players engaged longer. So if you're a fan of story, for example, you need to keep with it through all the patches to see the end.
Thank you, Chewable. Have a good day at work. Thank you for the follow.
Designed to deliver story most of all, gives you a completed one at launch, then adds additional adventures afterwards.
Shut up, wrestling.
The most notable difference in gameplay between the two, I think, is to start, the global cooldown in Final Fantasy XIV is 2.5 seconds. So when you're level 10, for example, and you only have 3 abilities, it seems like there's a lot of downtime. Later on, as you unlock other off-cooldown skills or increase your stats to lower your GCD, this changes, but for the start, it definitely feels pretty slow. This also translates into differences between the spell and ability rotations of the two games. Warcraft is more reactionary. Build up a bar or wait for a crit to trigger an ability,
to
while
an extent.
Final Fantasy XIV
Depends on the class.
is more proactive, where the player weaves a pattern of combos together to create a string of
I
pre-planned
guess
attacks.
that makes sense.
Even
I agree.
the procs in Final Fantasy XIV are associated with patterns and planning. Combat in WoW is like a street brawl, and Final Fantasy
Just
XIV
play dancer, guys.
is like a dance. And because 14 is more of a dance, the combat is more spectacular, and the spell effects are way more flashy than those in WoW. And for the most part, spell effects aren't necessarily designed with large groups in mind, unlike Warcraft. So when you're in a 24-man raid and all the effects are going off, it can sometimes feel blinding. So much so that there are options in 14 to decrease or turn them off for other players. Speaking of making changes to the game, 14
Credit to Dev
has
Knights,
a pretty amazing HUD customization in the base game. While you can do a lot more
I like
with the various add-ons.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have a whole YouTube video about this as well. But the whole add-ons shenanigans, I really like that it's just built into the base game, to be honest. Because WoW and add-ons is just a big yikes. Like the amount of times I've logged into WoW and been like, yeah, I really want to play that character, like that ult, or in your terms, that job. And I log in and I'm like, oh, I have to set up like a whole UI, and it's this big headache, and I have to get all these weak auras, and then I have to make it so that like all of my procs are like glowing and in my face, and I do all the rotation, and I just log out. I'm just like, fuck that shit, dude. DBM and like bigwigs and stuff is fine in my opinion, but it's stuff like weak auras and like LVUI and all that stuff is like a lot of customization, which takes ages. Didn't want to use TBM. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of needed. It depends on what level content you're doing. If you were like doing a normal raid or something, or like LFR, then you could rely on the telegraphs. The problem in WoW is like the abilities are telegraphed very poorly compared to like the telegraphs I've seen in this game. So it is definitely a lot harder to play proactively without having like DBM or something like that, because you can just get caught off guard. It's still mandatory in WoW to have DBM or bigwigs, one of the two. I personally think bigwigs is a little bit better, but DBM is more out of the box friendly to like newer players and people that aren't really like big on raiding. Like bigwigs, I'd say is like a higher end version, gives you a bit more information and a bit more customizable, but DBM is just better out of the box if you want to just like install, plug and play kind of thing. And then weak auras is like the arms race add-on, where it can basically do anything. You're like making add-ons within an add-on specifically tailored to your individual purposes, but it requires a lot of setup, and if you want to make the really good ones, you need to like basically be able to code. So you can get a lot of power out of it, but it leads to, because that add-on is so powerful, it leads to the developers. They obviously are aware how powerful that add-on is, which means that they are in an arms race with the players and people making weak auras within that add-on. So the better weak auras people can make, the devs see that as a challenge to be like, well, because they can make such good weak auras, we need to make harder content. And then it's just this constant arms race of like the devs trying to outdo the weak auras and the weak auras trying to outdo the devs. And now for like a casual player, the game is basically unplayable because like the devs are fighting against the top end people who care so much and try hard it that your average player is just there like, what the fuck is going on? Like the devs, they banned, they keep breaking like weak auras that are too strong, right? They put something in the game that makes it so that like certain weak auras can't function because they're too strong, and the players always come up with like a way around it. So it's just such a massive headache to even attempt to do bosses at this point. And for me personally, it's kind of ruined raiding in WoW for me. Yeah, exactly. They're against TOS. I don't know. I think they'll probably have to do the same thing in WoW, just make it against TOS. But like the thing is, add-ons are legal, and then it's like it's just gray lines between like what's okay and what's not. Whereas like I think you basically have like a strict no add-ons policy, and that just seems to work, right? Yeah, I mean, I think content does generally get progressively harder because over time people will get better at games, but get better at the game, and therefore like in WoW we have most mechanics that you see. If you've been playing a long time, you'll be like, oh yeah, that works the same as that guy from like 6 years ago. Like we've seen this mechanic before, but it's like slightly updated, slightly different. Like there's only so many unique mechanics that the devs can come up with, right?
And WoW 14 gives you enough tools to customize your experience.
It's going to be a very long YouTube video, guys.
Don't feel the absence of add-on support. This UI customization allows for the use of a controller, which the game was designed with in mind,
built into the game,
allowing for cross-platform play between PC and PlayStation.
Also, yeah, this is built for
player interface options and
console as well, right?
So you clutter your screen with as much information or as little as you want.
So you can't really have add-ons.
And we can't forget about the accessibility of players who simply can't use a mouse and keyboard.
Yeah.
Accessibility can be found in 14 in the form of universal language on markers. And
yeah, Mari.
I'm sure that as you've watched this video, you've noticed in the Final Fantasy XIV segments the same markers on the ground over and over and over again, to the point where players can have some idea of what's coming their way based on the effect. They understand what's about to happen and what's required. Another major gameplay difference, which is probably what we should have started with, is the ability for one character to play every job or class in the game and switch between them. If you choose Black Mage to start, for example, like I did, and you end up hating it, like I did, then you can switch to another job and try something new. Fall in love with something new, like a Red Mage, or a Warrior, or a Dragoon, like I did. And 14 is designed with this one character leveling multiple things in mind. WoW, on the other hand, is designed around having to create multiple alts to try different classes. But unlike 14, each of these new characters has some sort of racial ability or special action, and 14 doesn't have that. It doesn't mean you can't level alts in 14, but it's unnecessary to experience all the game has to offer. Warcraft does, however, have more overall combat diversity, with the option to choose talents and spec out your character in fun, weird ways.
RIP these talent trees. The new talent trees are good in WoW.
Also, the classes in WoW seem more wild and vibrant compared to that of Final Fantasy XIV. There are no Demon Hunter or Brewmaster analog, for example. It does have a
Demon Hunter,
but it's treated as more of a joke class with wacky, overpowered abilities that isn't really allowed in current content. Also, WoW really nails raiding and PvP. It's what the game was designed for, and they do it very well. The raids in WoW are larger and more intricate. The PvP is more varied and complex. But Final Fantasy XIV does something very fun with its dungeons, raids, and trials by including synced, unsynced, and minimum item level settings. You can change the difficulty of a dungeon, for example, to be exactly how it was when you first ran it in your low-level gear, or to cheese the hell out of it at max level.
I love that.
The last thing of note is that when crafting or gathering, 14 is much more visual.
When we finish ARR, we are doing min eye level raids. I'm going to be doing the raids as we go. It's going to be sick. Going to try and even do it with some other streamers. I know a few other Final Fantasy streamers as well. So we'll probably try and get the squad together. Oh yeah, I've been told to do coils of Bahamut at some point as well. Min eye level coils. Yeah, maybe. Coil gaming.
Complex than WoW. It's not just clicking a note.
I love the scaling down.
They're actually separate jobs, separate skills, separate stories, and separate gear that you can play without ever doing the main story. Although you'd need it to unlock some zones, There are whole events built around using these crafting and gathering jobs.
That's gonna be
Building
me
a city, for
getting
example.
gangbanged in the corner.
And as
Wait,
I mentioned
they were
before,
crafting.
Crafting actually makes viable gear. Unlike
Just
WoW,
ignore what I
whose
said.
crafters are mostly useless once people can do looking for raid. You're gonna get tired of hearing me say it. You probably already are, but story plays a major role in the aesthetics of 14 versus WoW as well. Both games look very good. Let me be clear. But they each have their own visual style. WoW is slightly more cartoony and exaggerated. Everyone has giant muscles, even the fat dudes and the gnomes.
Cultera,
is a bit more subdued
baby.
in all regards. Even the colors are more toned down. Some might call the character designs a bit anime. Meanwhile, the WoW character designs are more diverse than 14 as well. Trolls, undead, humans, pandas. In 14, it's more like
Oh,
human,
baby.
tiny human, cat human, horny human. The biggest difference I've noticed
we
comes
know
down to
those character
14's
creation
emotive
screens.
characters and WoW's wider array of visually diverse zones. These emotive characters make it so 14 can easily work in numerous in-game cutscenes and match the voices. In order to do the same thing in WoW, custom crafted scenes are made, which take time and limit the number that can be included. That's not to say that Warcraft characters can't show emotion.
Aphrius was a
Final
Chad.
Fantasy doesn't have visually diverse zones, but each does their thing better. WoW can get more wild with their visual design because they aren't limited by players on older consoles. The PS3 version of 14 was still available until 2017, which means the PS4 version will be limiting players for a few years still. Because its limits are fewer and the devs can update and change their graphics more frequently, WoW can create a more wild, outlandish, and visually striking environment for players to explore. And because 14 was started with storytelling in mind, characters' faces are designed to show a wider array of emotions. WoW, on the other hand, added story.
Do they have do they run the exact same version? Like, obviously they run the same patch and stuff, but do they run the same version of the game on console? Like, obviously same patch, but is it like graphically watered down? Because it's cross-platform, right? So you obviously can play together and whatnot. But they actually so is PC graphics kind of limited by what consoles hardware is like can do in this day and age, pretty much. I mean, that's good in a way, because then people with like toaster PCs can play the game, you know, and that looks half decent. And then here's me with my giga-chatted overkill PC, who's just like, well, like the only thing I've noticed where I'd actually say like the graphics is a bit clunky was the shadows on the trees. I don't know if it's because I'm in a forest zone, but when I look at the ground and like the trees' shadows are like really like square and like waving, it looks really trippy. That's the only thing that I would so far say like looks bad, but everything else looks fine and good, even in my opinion. Yeah, and if they improve that, then perfect, right? That's good enough for me, because I've never been someone who like is like I have to have everything on ultra highest everything. I'm just like, hey, as long as I have roughly 60 FPS or more, I'm good. Like if I can put my graphics up, great. If not, I prioritize FPS.
After the fact, so the game wasn't designed to have a lot of
That's good.
close-up
I can't wait for the
animations.
shadows then.
So as they add new in-game cinematics, many of the ones we're getting now seem to have these weird flappy jaw yapping things going on. And that stands out from the other higher quality cinematic stuff we're used to getting in WoW.
Yeah,
the music of these games is also another thing we're pointing out,
baby.
as it again is a perfect example of my original thesis. Like the graphic design of the games, they both have good music. But similar to WoW's visual style, Final Fantasy XIV's musical style is far more diverse and wild and fun. In Warcraft, music is
I like frame rate and RE.
Used to set the mood,
I also
or
like
zone, or dungeon, usually something catchy, repeating, and not all that intrusive. But many times, because of its generalized nature, there are moments where it might not fit the events that are on screen in an epic boss fight, for example. There's plenty of times I remember struggling through a raid to get to the final boss, and the music was pretty much the same as when I started the raid. Meanwhile, in 14, because the music, like everything else, is connected to the story, it's more moment-to-moment than WoW. Again, it's not like WoW doesn't do story moment music, or Final Fantasy XIV doesn't have ambient zone themes.
Jesus!
They both do their own
big
thing way more.
blunt thing.
Final Fantasy XIV has musical themes for sad moments,
with a lot of hands,
happy moments, and silly moments, and tense moments. It sometimes even tells a story. There are theme songs and leitmotifs, and
look at the
more
crystal, guys.
Battle music.
Okay, this one kind of bangs. This one kind of bangs.
It's just so good.
Okay, that was good.
Wiping or learning a fight more tolerable than a catchy song in the background. Truthfully, Final Fantasy XIV just has a larger variety of music and uses it better than WoW, which is crazy. Because I remember listening to the soundtrack for WoW Legion and thinking how great it was, only to find out there were some songs not even used, or if they were,
Dalaran 7.
I recall multiple versions of Anduin's theme, only for him to barely be involved in the main Legion storyline.
That's a lot of
and
songs.
His theme show up like maybe once or twice. That's so crazy to know they have all this amazing talent at Blizzard making music, and they don't even use it all. And remember Elite Tauren Chieftain? Final Fantasy XIV has a band of devs called the Primals, except they don't just do meme songs.
Lamatod, now you have to help me with Savage,
the hits from the game, lyrics and all, and let me tell you, they got some bangers. The difference is, while ETC was phased out of live events, the Primals are the highlight that everyone looks forward to. It's as if the WoW community thought ETC was kind of lame, and Final Fantasy XIV fans are like, more Primals, please.
This game just does everything
to talk about, and
I don't want to be like brown nosing, but this game just seems like it does so much right, you know? Like its approach. I like the approach. I really respect the approach to things and like how they do stuff. And I barely even played the game yet, right? And like, yeah, community. This one's gonna be big because I think the Final Fantasy community is absolutely insanely sick. Yeah, you guys like, and that's the thing. The people that like FF just love FF. The people that like WoW hate WoW. Like, it's so fucking backwards, man.
I'm sure it won't be controversial at all. The communities. I've been in the WoW community long enough. A pretty substantial theory about it. I know I'm gonna get lots of crap for this one, but I think the general notion is that it's pretty toxic. Yes, your personal guild might be awesome, but generally, I think we can all agree there are high levels of toxicity in the WoW community. And I believe this stems from the nature of the game itself. WoW is based in conflict. A game where two factions are pitted against each other from the beginning, so players already have an established enemy or other to focus their ire on. It is thematically ingrained in the community culture. And not only is player versus player part of the game, but so is competition on a PvE level, with world firsts and server firsts and more at a macro level, and then tools like DPS meters at a micro level to determine who is the best in the current party. Everyone is judging everyone at all times in Warcraft. It can feel overbearing. Even WoW's more cooperative events.
Yeah, we are bred to hate each other.
Players. As players are in the game longer,
WoW players
learn more, and think they know more, biases form, opinions, valid or otherwise, take root, and soon the forums are littered with waste. You know, toxic. 14,
toxic
at least
waste.
In my experience.
The faction race limits in WoW, so they only just allowed cross-faction gameplay, basically, like 6 months ago, if even that. So for the last like 19, 20 years, there was half the game that you couldn't interact with, basically, and you were supposed to be at war with them and hating them and stuff. I can see their train of thought. They're like, okay, well, it's literally a game of war, and there's two factions, and they're fighting against each other, and it did make for some good moments for sure in the history of WoW, like the whole faction war, the world PvP, you know, like certain factions having territorial wars and stuff. It did definitely make for some good moments in the game and a lot of fun for a lot of people. But in modern day WoW, when most people, like, the world used to be like the main character of the game, so people would go out and, as he said at the start of this video, they would just go find stuff to do within the world, and therefore I think the faction thing was actually a good thing. But now, where basically the world is the pre-game lobby and it's mostly people like queuing up to get into raids or dungeons and this and that, like, no one, I mean, definitely there are people, but the majority of people at Endgame doing Endgame content are just sitting in the main city and queuing up to stuff, and they're not exploring, they're not flying around, they're not, you know, interacting with the world, they're not interacting with other players in the world, especially. it's like logging into Fortnite, and then you're in like the pre-game lobby thing, and then you hit play, and you're just queuing up to a game, and then the actual game begins. So yeah, hub of Warcraft, and then you go into like a dungeon and extra content. So now it doesn't make sense at all to have the factions, because no one's taking advantage of them anyway or interacting with the other faction at any time. It's just like it's just half the player base that you just couldn't play with, basically. So times have changed. I think at the time it probably was a good thing, but they should have definitely lapsed on it much earlier than they did.
Has been different. And it's hard to explain because, sure, there must be toxicity in the community. I've heard of it. I've never seen it. And maybe that's streamer privilege. Maybe it's just I'm very lucky. I don't know. But most people, if you ask, will tell you how nice and wonderful and kind the 14 community is. But it's also jarring. If you're a WoW player coming to the Final Fantasy
I don't even have to take that at just someone's word now. I've experienced it.
Let me give you a great example. Rare mobs. Or in the case of 14, ranked mobs. In WoW, if you see a rare monster, you find a way to kill that thing as fast as you can, you grab friends, you grab guildies, you want that special drop. In Final Fantasy XIV, that's frowned upon by most of the community. I found this out one day when I saw a rare and asked my free company, my guild, for help. And they were like, dude, wait for the hunt train. And I was like, what? What the hell are you talking about? It's right here, right now.
To be fair,
and they explained
it's frowned upon in WoW as well.
When all the rares are finally spawned, hunt trains form, and like 100 players move from zone to zone, killing them.
Oh, that's so sick,
each getting credit for the kills and any sort of.
I used to do that in WoW. There was in the Broken Shore in Legion. I remember people would want to farm those shards, which you could use to trade in on the Mage Tower to have attempts at the Mage Tower, and also to get like trinkets and like random chances at trinkets. And people would form these like big raids, and then you just fly in a circle around the zone, just killing the rares for like an hour until you were like capped out and you couldn't do anymore. That was really fun. I prefer that to just like people just kind of going to the rare and trying to solo it and slog it down, and then people arrive and everyone misses it and then they just flame you. Like we have the same thing in WoW. And also I imagine, like someone said, haven't heard of toxicity in Final Fantasy. I imagine there's toxicity in literally every game. I just think that like en masse so far in my experience and from what I've heard, and especially from what I've seen, there's been most people have been like super open, super nice, and everything's like well received. Or like I guess the Final Fantasy is like really nice to you until you piss them off, kind of thing. Like when I had my welcome party the other day to the game, the first time I logged in, we had like, it must have been like 200 people or something came out to like welcome me to the game, which was just mind-blowing, right? And then we had like 6 or 7 people who were clearly just like mates and sat in a Discord, and they were even in the stream, and they were like sitting there on like machinists, like spamming flamethrowers and stuff so that no one could see anything, and like trying to like ruin the event. And then people started reporting them, and I think they were getting taken to GM prison, and then they were like apologizing in the stream chat like, I'm so sorry. Like I had no idea what was going on. People were like, yo, Russ, you know they were trolls, right? You were literally shouting them out and greeting them, because I was just like, people were running up to me, and I was like, oh my god, you, yeah, and reading their character name and being like, thanks so much for coming to me. And then they were like sitting in my face going, look, and like shit like this. And I was just like, I didn't know, I was so overwhelmed. I was just like, oh my god, there's so many people. And like, oh, you guys are so awesome. And then they were just sat there like spraying like flamethrowers and like bile guns and stuff. It's good though that like it's cracked down upon like actual toxicity. I guess there's gonna be like gray lines of like what's considered toxic and what's not, but you know, like actual toxicity, if it is dealt with, like nip it in the bud as it happens, and people will just be like, well, I guess I can't do that, or I guess I won't do that, right? Like, whereas in WoW, like especially stuff like botting in classic WoW and whatnot, it literally goes for like 6 months. The GMs do nothing about it, and by that point, everyone's like, well, why am I not doing this if I can get a competitive advantage and not get punished? And then it just gets out of control to the point, and then they're like, oh guys, we banned like 8,000 accounts. Be proud of us. It's like, you should just be doing that anyway. Like, don't get us to fucking, you know, kiss your ass because you did what because you did your job. Like, what? Just fucking do your job and make the game like functional, you know?
This idea baffled me. I was like, I am here right now. What if I'm not online later? I have to pass up the kill just cause? And they were like, yeah.
Yeah, bitch.
I know it sounds crazy, but having done multiple hunt trains now, I understand it completely.
It looks so cool with everyone on their
Actually
mounts and
prefer it.
stuff, though.
It's almost like if WoW had this same concept, I may have actually seen a time-lost Proto-Drake once or twice. Warcraft eventually had moments like
that's
this,
true, yeah.
or Nash Tadar and Mechagon, but it's not on the same level. This camaraderie in the 14 community translates to how they treat new players for the most part as well. Sprouts, as they are lovingly called, are new players with a little icon next to their name. Normally, one would assume an icon next to your name letting everyone know that you have no idea what you're doing would seem like you just got yourself a scarlet letter and became a pariah. But in Final Fantasy XIV, it's the exact opposite.
Look
Instead
at all
of
them
trolling
sprouts.
Or treating them poorly, most players cheer them on or
Kisses
offer
for
advice
everyone.
and tips in dungeons. It makes it easier to understand if someone has no clue what's going on. You can instantly see they're new, and it's okay. And the game even rewards players with bonuses for having them in your group. And that's what I think is so special about the community in 14. I've seen plenty of
And then the
players try new
mentors as
classes
well.
or a build or whatever in both WoW and 14.
We are awesome.
And people can get intimidated about being yelled at for sucking or not knowing something.
Can you guys all just give yourself a pat on the back for being awesome? Come on. You guys deserve it. Give yourself a pat on the back and a great big hug.
But in 14, that little sprout icon lets players know immediately that you're newer to the game. So they have an expectation that you might not know some things. And it makes it easier to ask, which is honestly the biggest problem in WoW. New players are always afraid to ask what...
Well, that's because new players get goddamn ridiculed for asking a question. The amount of shit I've seen on like WoW Twitter, and people are like, yeah, I just joined the game. I was in a leveling dungeon. It was like my second dungeon ever. And a guy was like, how very fucking dare you pull that pack of things? And they're like, oh, it's an accident. I walked too close. I'm so sorry. And this is like, vote kick. Get them the fuck out of here. You piece of shit. Like, and they're just like, I guess I'll quit the game. Fuck this community. And hey, I don't blame them. Smudging.
To do. Just as an example of how this mentality rubs off on you, I was doing my 14 roulettes or dungeon dailies and got the final Omega raid. When it popped, I was in a group of almost all
Chicas,
sprouts.
can you
For
drop
those
it in
of
my
you
Discord in the
who
React
don't know,
section?
This fight is what you would call a complicated dance. We wiped. A lot. And in my guild chat, I was cursing up a storm. I was so upset that I had to go through this thing that I thought was going to take me 5 minutes, but I'm here on like minute 30. But in party chat with the sprouts, I was like, we can do this. Come on. I'll teach you how to do this fight. I've often thought about what sprouts...
That's me in WoW, dude. I never flame people in-game, but I will sit behind my monitor like, this guy's a goddamn idiot. But in-game, I'm like, we can do it. Let's give it another try. And I'm just like, oh my god, this guy, dude. But that's the difference between me and a lot of people, because a lot of people will just say it to their face and then they'll be like, well, fuck you then. I'm not going to play with you.
In WoW would be like, and the only thing I can think of is that it would mostly be people dropping from parties that they showed up in. Again, this isn't to say the Final Fantasy XIV community is perfect. Obviously, assholes play all sorts of games.
Yep.
The general nature of the player base seems a bit more relaxed. Yes, someone will tell me I'm doing something wrong while I stream, but that's every game. For everyone. The biggest difference, I think, is the Final Fantasy XIV community does not tolerate a lot of the stuff that WoW does. The crackdown on bad actors is swift and immediate. And some of you may be like, well, that doesn't sound cool. I guess for the people who don't want to deal with that stuff, it's pretty cool. I don't know. The last big takeaway I have on community is this. The WoW player base seems always ready to attack their game, even while loving it.
Yes.
And the Final Fantasy XIV community is always trying to defend their game, even if it doesn't need it.
Yeah, dude, that's the difference. That's what I said. Everyone who plays WoW hates it. Everyone who loves WoW hates it.
You've made it some 30 minutes into a YouTube video, and you find yourself here.
Thank you for the content-based Jesse Cox.
Long-winded way of saying again what I'm sure I made clear in the first 5 minutes.
Holy shit!
I really wanted to expand upon the differences between WoW and 14, and how there are players who like each of these. So I guess that's pretty much it for this video. Sure, there's definitely going to be something I missed or couldn't find a way to fit in the video. That's what comments are for, I suppose. So please, if you have something to add or additional thoughts or insights, or if you think I'm way off, let me know. This video was done out of love for both games and the knowledge that each has its own audience, and it's okay to like one and not the other. I hope the takeaway is that if you enjoy story games as much as I do, you'll check out 14, And if you could care less, you're probably already invested in WoW, and I don't see why.
What the fuck?
That's what it comes down to, at least for me.
My
Anyway,
husband.
thanks so much. Thank you to all the amazing patrons who make videos like this possible.
Alright, I need to do this side quest.
If you like this, share it with your friends or give it a like. That'd be swell. I would love it if you would consider subscribing.
Guys,
and hit the bell and do all the things
go
that
like the
you
video.
have to do on YouTube in order to see a video these days. But that's it.
Go like his video.
Thank you so much.
And sub.
I will see you in game.
Good video, Jesse Cox. Thank you for the content. My king. This is Asmon reacting to it. 1 hour 16. I think we did longer than 1 hour 16. I reacted harder than Asmon. Hey, you can't say react harder here, okay?